Marine Reacts to the Black Templars, Part 2, by Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. As always, I'm going to be leaving a link to the original video channel down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. So, right off the bat, if at any point there's certain sections that are muted or that are completely trimmed out and they kind of just seem out of place, just know that I had to get rid of certain parts due to the copyright claim of the music. This has happened in some previous videos, including the Hell's Reach video that I released as well. So just know if that happens, that's the case. Not too much of a recap on the first one, mainly just because they talked about more about the history and kind of how they were founded, and they talked about Rogel Dorn, a little bit about the Horus Heresy. I did find out some things in the comments as well. Obviously, as far as how true they are, you know, at this point I'm just taking it as something that someone has said, and then I try to see if there's things later on that actually support it to ensure that it's 100% according to the lore. So as far as the Big E, some have said that yes, he does have a name, but nobody knows it because obviously the name actually has power in this universe. So I'm saying that he's been alive for so long that he's got very many different names and that there's no pinpoint one directly to him. As far as the Primarchs and them being converted to the powers of chaos, it was that some of them were convinced, some of them were tricked, some were easily convinced, like they kind of really had the idea and they just saw this as an opportunity. Many saying that Horus was not the first one to be corrupted and that he was actually the one that was corrupted. I believe people were saying Angorn or Magnus, or what was it, Lorgar? But in any case, other than that, they really talked about a lot about Sigismund, who's fucking boss. That's as far as my notes goes. That's what I literally wrote. I wrote his name and then I put boss, and then I put he was a part of the Imperial Fists. He was one of the few Marines that survived the Iron Cage, not the Bird Cage, which I made the mistake. And then they ended up saying about the Imperial Fists were going to be made of the veterans, that the Crimson Fists were going to be the more younger, more optimistic Marines, and that obviously last ones being the most zealous, the most fanatical Black Templars with Sigismund as the leader. And then after that, they just talk about the 4 really, really long vows. But other than that, I believe we ended off at a point where they were going to go see what the recruitment process was. So excited to learn more about that because I can only imagine what these guys have to go through to become one. So let's go ahead and get into the actual videos. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. Hit that notification bell right there. So you get notified every time I do upload. Sometimes I upload twice a day. Now I'm working on them in the evenings and then releasing them early the next day. That way when you all wake up, you have a fresh new video first thing in the morning. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see what else the Black Templars are all about.
Another main difference in their organisation and deployment on the field of battle is how they intake and train their forces. The vast majority of Astartes chapters follow the Codex Astartes, the Tome of Tactics and Organisation written by Reboot Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines. In said treatise, the Astartes are directed to take Marines into their scout companies at first. These companies are grounds for training and for gaining experience before the younger Marine joins the battle line proper. When scout training has concluded, they are then funneled into tactical squads, who are armed mostly with bolters, but are capable of meeting most threats. They are the backbone of a chapter, as these squads do contain a heavy weapon and specialist equipment, but only
I just heard backbone, then I thought of the Marine Corps as like sergeants are the backbone of the Marine Corps. So, just a little funny fact.
few, so the unit has incredible tactical flexibility. Marines will then progress to more specialised roles in either close assault units or heavy weapons units. From there they progress to the first company and become one of the veterans of the chapter, if they are deemed worthy, by dint of their heroism and skill in decades of combat. This regimen and pathway is utterly ignored by the Black Templars. There is much to be said for the way that the Templars train their Marines, for a reason I will go into in a moment. Templar candidates who are recruited from worlds they pass on their unending crusades are, as with other chapters, put through incredibly grueling testing. But from there the similarity ends. For Black Templars are not placed in scout companies. The Templars do not own such things. They believed that training and the acquisition of the metal needed to be counted amongst the number of the Black Templars comes only from direct field experience and the fires and fury of battle. So when a candidate becomes an Astartes, their biological changes and enhancements complete, they become a neophyte. Every neophyte is then taken on as a futuristic squire to a more experienced Templar, known as an initiate. These initiates are actually fully paid up members of the Templars. They will personally train the neophyte in all aspects of war. They will take them into battle at their side and give them the most harsh and brutal initiation into the life of a frontline Templar, charging into the midst of the heart of the enemy in their very first sally. Thus do Templars gain on-the-spot training and a baptism of fire that sees a tragically high number of them left scattering battlefields across the galaxy in their hundreds and thousands. The death toll in the Black Templars is excruciating compared to the statistics of others. But those Templars who are finally deemed to have worth and shown true faith, tenacity, fury and ability are then some of the most rugged and able of all Space Marines.
Alright, so from what I just got from that was that they're kind of learning on the go, and as far as them just immediately going straight into battle as soon as we get become a neophyte, I mean, I could understand somewhat because it's like the best way to learn, I guess, is through first-hand experience. But obviously, as far as them saying the excruciating numbers are pretty high in the casualties, that this could probably produce quite a few Space Marines when they finish the whole entire process that are going to be insanely like elite in nature. But obviously you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose a lot for a few. But then again, when you've got billions upon billions of people that you can kind of choose from, especially from all the worlds that they're going through, I guess you're kind of playing a numbers game at this point.
Thus, the tactical squad does not exist for the Black Templars. They call these squads, made up of experienced initiates and their neophyte squires, crusade units. Nor are they regimented and organised into pretty orders of battle that other adherents to the Codex Astartes must arrange. For in the Black Templars, one fights at the side of those one wishes to fight at the side of, and this can change. Thus, Crusader units are not forced or created by some bureaucratic rule. No. They are formed by colleagues of like-minded Astartes merely organising themselves into units to meet threats. In this way, the Black Templars are far more flexible and amazingly driven. They see a threat and meet the challenge, any challenge, head-on. They do not have a designated sergeant in charge of a Crusader unit, as they are all of one mind and one purpose. They are simply not needed.
So, by that logic, then, they can really... I mean, I understand that's always like that teamwork mentality, right? But from that, it seems like one of them can pretty much do... Like, if one of them can do something, another one directly to the left or right can do the same thing. So it's kind of like they can all be kind of like their own little one-man type force. Which, considering that I've heard many people say that they've got thousands and thousands, I mean, obviously past that 1,000 mark, of Space Marines. Damn. Holy shit.
These seemingly small differences to their brothers of chapters who follow the Codex Astartes can cause issues when they are deployed amongst larger campaigns. So the Black Templars attempt to make sure that they are in such force and such numbers that collaboration is simply not required. Although they will never refuse a call for assistance from a brother chapter, they will do so on their own terms, and will not yield command or control to those who follow what they consider the dogmatic and inflexible structures, tactics and strategies employed by the Codex Astartes. Simply put, the Black Templars fight their way, or not at all.
That's kind of the vibe I was getting too. It's like these guys are going to do things their own way. They're willing to help, but even though they go there, even if you've got more troops than them, you've got more... I don't know if I should say quote-unquote leaders, because technically every single one of them seems like they're just a leader in their own right, that they're still going to do things their way. And I know, and I've heard that there's always like quite a bit of friction between different Space Marine chapters against each other. I heard that it's even with the Imperial Guard, different regiments. I'd be very curious. Someone actually mentioned in the comments, wonder how the Krieg and the Black Templars would actually look at each other in terms of like who is the most zealous or fanatical between the two. No, it's just something I'd be very curious about to find out.
Due again to the second oath, there is much less emphasis placed on the training and accuracy with a bolt gun or rifle that is usually one of the defining factors of an Imperial Fist successor chapter. For the Black Templars, the oaths are living, breathing things and may never, ever be avoided, even if this would mean they lose an encounter. Thus, the emphasis of training and combat ability is almost exclusively funneled into peerless ability with close combat weaponry. Only the Blood Angels in the midst of a Black Rage, or the Sons of Lehman Russ, the Space Wolves, could hope to come close to the close quarters potentials of a Black Templar, but even then, it would be a close-run thing. When an initiate is deemed to have served with colossal honour, then they are permitted to join the Order of Sword Brethren, the Codex equivalent of the Veteran. From there, should they survive decades or even centuries of close combat with the most vile and unspeakable creatures in the galaxy, or from the warp, can they be promoted to leadership. But this is always dead man's shoes, as with other chapters. The most significant difference in the Templars and their peers are twofold. One, they do not have a home planet or planets that they defend and from which they draw their aspirants, those who would be Space Marines. The Black Templars robustly recruit from every last world they cleanse, save, or pass. Their need for new warriors is a hunger that cannot be satisfied, as their war is never ending. 2. The Black Templars are the only chapter or organisation that have kept the fires of the original crusade alight. For the Black Templars have taken oaths that they will never tire, they will never stop, they will never relent until the entire Milky Way galaxy is free from the taint of the Xenos, the mutant, the witch and the traitor. Thus they live and breathe, move and die aboard vast crusade fleets. The crusade for them never ended. The Black Templars also use this practice to flagrantly ignore the limits on the number of Astartes.
Before you get any further, the part about them recruiting from different worlds, right? I mean, it's completely understandable because they're always in a constant crusade, right? And they're trying to keep their numbers up so that sometimes assistance is never really needed. And I've been seeing from 6,000 to 8,000. I've seen people say 10,000 to 12,000. And obviously, that apparently nobody has, at least, or wants to call them out on it openly for pretty obvious reasons. But as far as them recruiting from different worlds, I wonder what they would look for in someone that would be a recruit. I mean, I would say it's going to be someone who's young, right? And then that way so the genes could actually take hold. And then, but for them specifically, I wonder if they would just look at someone who, I guess, wouldn't take shit from anybody, or they see something in a certain person. But considering that many would die, it's most likely, I'm thinking, that they'll just take a big handful, doesn't matter who they are, and then just pick from that category. And most likely, I would assume it would probably be by force. I mean, or maybe not. I mean, I don't know. I feel like every chapter has been doing kind of their own thing in their own way. But the Black Templars kind of really take the cake with that type of mentality.
Space Marines that can be kept under the one banner, the one chapter. It is said that the only one person in all of the Imperium who knows how many Templars there are is the High Marshal of the Black Templars. No others. It is true that the attrition rate among the chapters is eye-watering, but their intake is organised to more than make up for this rate. More than. Hence it is suspected by many that the Black Templars, if gathered in one place, could potentially equate to the numbers that could only be described as a full legion. It is known that inquisitors or nosy bureaucrats of the administratum, who take too close an interest in the requisition of materials, Those who attempt to truly discern the numbers of the Templars are often likely to have lethal accidents. The Templars do not tolerate any interference in their activity. None whatsoever, for they see their mandate as coming from the Emperor himself, and bow to none but he. But a full muster of the entire Black Templars has never, and probably never will, happen. For the Black Templar Crusade fleets are in most parts of the galaxy, bringing the fire of wrath and the light of purity to all regions that they deem to require them, which is all regions.
Honestly, at this point, Black Templars are kind of sounding like Texas.
For the heretic, the witch, the Xenos, and the traitor know no shame and respect no boundaries. So thus the endless crusade must follow them and root them out wherever they rear their foul heads. Many a disagreement has occurred betwixt the Templars and the local lords of a region, but the Templars do not ever care to take any heed. For if the local lords had been doing their job, as the Emperor has decreed, then their presence would not be required. Thus, if their presence is required, then the local lord, chapter, or militarum are beneath contempt, for they have failed. When a region is pacified, the crusade will then go on. But they also can leave training camps on planets at their discretion. If this happens, then the initiates will take their neophytes into combat as before, but locally. This usually only occurs when a region has been cleansed, but the Templars know that it will not remain so. For evil is always obstinate, and never knows when it is beaten. Thus, there are centres of Templars across the galaxy, as well as the main strength of the various crusading fleets. One can only wonder exactly how many of them there are. What dire need, what terrible threat might be required for the High Marshal to give the clarion call to resound so fiercely across the entire galaxy that it would recall every last one to a muster. The thought alone is terrifying. So we get onto one of the most important elements of the Black Templars: faith. In the long years of the original Great Crusade, there was a simple truth to which all of humanity was to be illuminated. What the Emperor demanded be promulgated: the Imperial Truth. The Imperial Truth was very simple, but will require full entry in the future to cover its nuances. For the now, you only need to know its basics. The Imperial Truth stated that there were no gods, that religion itself was one of the greatest enemies of humanity, and any religion was a lie. There were no spirits, there was no afterlife, and there was no God. Most chapters of the Adeptus Astartes still adhere to the Imperial Truth, but this is...
Yes, and I do understand that, as far as my understanding of what people have said, that most of the Space Marine chapters still view the Emperor as a man that just did incredible things, but that the Black Templars is one of the few, if not maybe the only Space Marine chapter that actually view him as a god and kind of worship him in that way. But as far as them saying about no gods, but technically, was this at the time before they knew about the Chaos Gods? Or was it just meant like, didn't it mean like some of the more traditional religions that, say, we know today? Or, I would think so, just because I don't think maybe at that point they would have known about the Chaos Gods. That's just my thinking, though.
Not so of the Black Templars. The Templars have replaced the Imperial Truth with one of their own, and many of their peers sneer at this change. The Templars are of the ardent belief that the Emperor of mankind is, in fact, the god of humanity. This is no hyperbole, no lip service, and no whimsy. They believe this with every fibre of their being. Any aspirant who does not allow this faith to infuse every aspect of their mind, heart, and soul will be rejected, no matter how adept or how much potential they may have in any or all other disciplines of war, no matter how they could be a shining light to adorn the chapter. If they cannot take the faith of their Emperor's godhead into them, then they will be rejected. The faith of the Black Templars is terrifying to all. They are holy warriors and take the name of their campaigns, crusades, quite literally. They are warriors who have been charged by their god, the Emperor, to strike down his enemies. They believe that he watches them at all times, as he is omniscient. They believe that he has the power to intervene, as he is omnipotent, as any good god should be. But he does not do so, as they are his champions. Each Black Templar believes that every action, every deed, every moment they represent the God Emperor of mankind. This religious fervour has built them into a force that is nigh on unstoppable. Where others would perform a tactical withdrawal, where others would seek to regroup and redeploy to better confront a superior foe, the Black Templars not only stand firm, they push forward. I have stated before that the casualty rate amongst the chapter is unprecedented. For this is one of the reasons why. Their drive to face enemies blade on blade, no matter any disparity of size or power, is one factor, but their unquenchable zeal is the other. They do not run. They do not cower behind walls or parapets. They do not allow for long sieges or protracted bombardments of placements. They charge. One might say this is...
The part about the charging is really reminiscent, and also makes me think of the Hell's Reach again, where Romaldus was pissed off that he was going to have to be in a defensive type position instead of taking the fight to the actual orcs in orbit. So I like how it's all kind of coming together now, and it's making understanding this a little easier for myself, but also understanding, like, say, Hell's Reach, or like where it's not really necessarily lore, but like more story based.
Foolhardy at the very minimum, but it has been their way for over 10,000 years and will never change. They do not throw lies away, gentle listener, but they just construe any challenge whatsoever as one to be met head-on, and can be goaded or led into traps with comparative ease. Those who do manage to lead the bully of the chapter into a trap often find that they have woefully underestimated the mettle of their victims. The amount of times that a Black Templar force has made a trap into a massacre is uncountable. For those thinking that they have trapped the Black Templars often find that they are the ones caught in a slaughterhouse as the dauntless fanatics tear through their number like a hot breeze through corn. Anyone wishing to attempt to trap the Black Templars had better be prepared for the fight of their lives, for usually it is their last. The fanaticism of the Templars to their faith has other effects. Although once, long ago, they are recorded to have had psykers amongst their number, this is no longer true, and has not been for some time. Definitely a tale for another time, though. Ever since...
So they did used to have psykers. Now, in that case, I wonder if they would have just kicked them out, because obviously they're not about that unless it's an absolute necessity, depending on the situation. But I wonder if they would have just gotten kicked out, or maybe for known reasons, but
They have not only been without psychic support, they have actively refused to fight alongside any force that contains what they consider a witch. There is only one exception to this rule. One, the Grey Knights. As the Grey Knights are the direct progeny of the Emperor, their genesis is the genome of the Emperor himself, not a Primarch. They are deemed to be the only psykers that the Black Templars will tolerate on the same field of combat as they. The zeal of the Black Templars is such that over time it is proved to seep into their very weapons and equipment of war, as mad as that may seem. There are reports that the very machine spirits of some Land Raider Crusaders, huge battle tanks with troop transport capacity, has been affected by the constant exposure to the Black Templars, so much so that it has infected them. More than one report of a vehicle's machine spirit impatience for the fray has led to them being discovered in the camp of an enemy, the vehicle itself going forward and exterminating everything in an enemy camp where the Black Templars were at prayer before the fray. Although other chapters or organisations would look in horror at this form of independence of action and activity, the Templars laud the vehicle for its righteous anger, its wish to serve the Emperor more directly.
So kind of in a sense, they gave sentience to I mean, let's say tank, because it's kind of what the closest thing it resembles. So in a way, they kind of give sentience to it. Wouldn't that be considered? I mean, and they said that they like the wrath that it showed. Wouldn't that be technically considered a form of like witchcraft in their eyes? I don't know. I mean, that tank looking very sus.
Also, it is a sign of their power and faith that despite having no psychic ability whatsoever, the Templars can disrupt the powers of the warp that may assail them. Their faith in the Emperor is quite literally a shield from the powers of corrupting bodies and the bolts and blasts of the witch alike.
That's a Reclusiarch. It might be Grimaldus. And obviously that's me just saying it because this little back part right here, and I guess you would consider this a mace?
They are not immune to the mightiest of psychers, but the untrained or weak.
Never mind, I saw that he doesn't seem to have the little same mask as Grimaldus. And also, I don't know if that's a requirement to be a Reclusiarch, but you know what? I'm just going to pretend like I didn't say anything.
Or distracted or overconfident, has often sneered at a Black Templar and extended their hand to electrocute or annihilate them, only to find their vaunted powers fizzle as the knight rams a blade through their chest. Truly, for the Black Templars, the Emperor protects. Black Templars are, however, so zealous that they can leave a bloody wake. For no psyker, mutant, abhuman, or suspected traitor will ever be left to infect the Imperium as a whole. The wiping out of all life from a planet can be a regular punishment decreed by the Templars. One could not count the millions of humans that have been slain by the Templars in their cause, but one must always remember their history and the goal to understand how such seeming callousness can be done in the name of the Emperor. For the Black Templars, they will never forget the Horus Heresy, nor the events of Old Night. They know that to sacrifice even the population of a world of billions must be weighed against the survival of the entire Imperium, and trillions. They have witnessed personally and regularly how the machinations of just one powerful cycle or demon can drag an entire sector and hundreds of worlds into a hell. Better to prune the rose bush and have it healthy than to allow a rot, any rot, to spread. With the stakes so high, the Black Templars will never shy away from any task, no matter how brutal, no matter how terrible it is to perform. For they are the hand of the Emperor. They are his champions, at least in their minds. Also, the Oaths remove any and all chance of working with alien races, what the Imperium calls Xenos, no matter how common cause may be in play. It is with stunned confusion and rage that many an Eldar army has expected the forces of humanity to join them in a raging battle against chaos, only to find that the Black Templars will charge both sides at the same time. The Black Templars give no quarter, ever.
He was going to say fucks. I know he was going to say that.
For no reason whatsoever will a champion of the Emperor, a Black Templar, ever meet or treat or suffer the Xenos to live.
Alright, let's go ahead and talk about that for a minute. I forgot to press record, so now I'm redoing this whole little outro again, but don't worry, I'm going to get through it. As far as the crusade, right, like, does anyone think that the crusade is ever going to end? But considering that it's going to be an eternal crusade, because considering everything that's out there, orcs, tyranids, the demons, everything else, the Necrons, that I don't ever think that that's going to happen. Or if it does happen, it might not be until like maybe hundreds of thousands of years later on down the road. But then again, that with the increasing numbers of Black Templars, obviously no one seems to be wanting to do anything about it, which I guess could be good in a sense, because the Black Templars have a lot of experience and they seem to be one of those Space Marine chapters that you really would want in order to fight, like, say, any type of for example, orcs, tyranids, etc. But does anyone think that them getting too big or getting too much of a high number could also possess, or not possess, but start something kind of like the Horus Heresy, or in terms of like if there's so many numbers in one chapter, and does anyone feel like that would kind of create some negative consequences? I mean, I think if that did happen, where on the off chance that one of the Black Templars became corrupted, I feel like it wouldn't really spread too much within the Black Templars. I feel like they would kind of police their own, maybe take them out. Kind of like in the Marine Corps, you know, make sure that you guys are good, keep them accountable. I mean, obviously in this case, it'd be a lot different considering that they would be corrupted by chaos, but does anyone else think that that could prove to have some issues further on down the road? And as far as the god aspect, or them seeing the Emperor Man as a god, does anyone know who kind of started that for them? Or like, why is it that they see him as a god? I mean, they truly believe that he's omnipotent, and he's always with them, and that just kind of was the Sigus man maybe that was the one that really painted him as a god, or one that just truly followed him in terms of like just doing or going through everything at his command, because he was selected to be the champion, right? And this just kind of trickled down to every single Black Templar that started to come on, and then just seeing that, and then also with them being very stubborn, which could be good because, you know, stubbornness, you don't give up. But as far as, for example, when they said that the Eldar were trying to team up with the humans to try to go take on the Chaos Demons, but that the Black Templars would rush them both, and it's like, even though they're trying to help, you know, the Black Templars would obviously have a negative aspect in this sense, because yes, I understand that the elders aren't human, but it's like they're willing to work with you, right? So, I mean, unless you keep them separated, like have them fighting in a different area, and then have the Eldar fighting with other Space Marine chapters in a different area. But I mean, that stubbornness, I feel like it can have a pro and con, and it would just be dependent on how the story would go. And lastly, from what I said when I wasn't recording, trying to speed run through this, they're really not in the form of second chances. And it's obviously pretty easy to tell why, considering the background and kind of the origins. Especially when they talked about the Traitor Marines, and the Horus Heresy is something that they'll never forgive and never really get out of their mind. That's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, really does help me a lot. Hit that dislike button if you didn't like it. It helps me for the channel. If you're curious to see what's coming up next, check the description down below. You're going to see a list of five videos. Top to bottom is going to be how I view them. But until then, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.